Welcome to Second Take, the show that focuses on the issues behind the news. The United States car market is in deep trouble, with 2 of the 3 big automotive companies applying for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. Irma Venter, senior contributing editor for Engineering News, joins us now in studio as we take a look at how this fall from grace happened and what influence it will have on the South African market. Irma, welcome to the Second Take show. Both General Motors and Chrysler have filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy protection. What is a Chapter 11 filing?
It allows for a company's reinvention rather than its liquidation. So it will enter a process where it's kept safe from creditors and where it can emerge as a new, smaller, leaner company, ideally within 30 to 90 days. So it's a period under court supervision, so it is actually allowed to restructure, to shed its less profitable brands, for example, or its less profitable divisions, and emerge as this new company retaining only its most profitable bits. And this is what's happening now. It's not a process like we know it in South Africa where it's liquidation, where liquidators move in, they sell off the assets, and everybody takes a little bit of everything, and the company is dead. So General Motors and Chrysler, they've both filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy now, as you've mentioned. They will be allowed to continue after this process. Chrysler entered the process on April the 30th, and General Motors did so on June the 1st. Chrysler's a bit further along in the process now, obviously. They've already said that the US bankruptcy court have allowed them to sell their operations into a new company called Chrysler Group LLC, which is basically a global alliance with Italian motor manufacturer Fiat. It will be a new company. It will allow Fiat access into the US market, which is a bit of a closed market sometimes for manufacturers to enter. And then, of course, it will allow Chrysler access to smaller, more fuel-efficient type of vehicles, more exciting design type of vehicles that you can see emerge from Europe every now and then. General Motors, obviously, it only happened on June the 1st. The plan on the table here is, though, that it will shed some unprofitable brands like Hummer, Saab, Pontiac, Saturn, and that it will retain a focus on its very profitable brands like Chevrolet and like Cadillac.
How did General Motors and Chrysler get into such deep trouble?
It's a bit of a strange turn of events because they used to rule the automotive landscape in the world. I mean, Chrysler is a very old company. General Motors is more than 100 years old. Ford is the famous Henry Ford started the Model T production, the mass production of the people's car. So this process started a very long time ago. But then as things moved along, there was more of a focus on the big muscle car, the American car, the iconic big pickup, and cars like this. And of course, these vehicles use a lot of fuel. They're very big and big bulky. And while this was happening, the Asian manufacturers moved into the US market. So Toyota and Honda move into this market. They produce smaller cars, compact cars, sedans, family sedans. And then what happened was the oil price, as we know last year, it spiked at about $150 a barrel and was on its way to $200 a barrel. And then people started saying, whoa, I can't afford buying this big pickup anymore. My fuel bill is just way too high, so I'm going to buy Japanese rather. And of course this shrunk the market share of the US companies. And then to compound the problem, we had the US credit crisis set in last year. And then people simply didn't have credit, weren't extended to people to buy new cars. And the US market dropped simply by 7 million units a year. I mean, for 5 years they retained a market of about 16 million units a year. Now that's down to 9.5 million units a year now. So the US car market is in big trouble. It used to be the biggest car market in the world. This year it's been overtaken by the Chinese market, and the Chinese market is now the biggest car market in the world.
So what impact will these events in the United States have on the operations of General Motors and Chrysler here in South Africa? Should consumers be worried?
Well, the straightforward answer is probably no. Chrysler South Africa and General Motors South Africa have both been emphatic, and they said, no, don't worry, there's no need for you to stop buying our cars and to worry if you own one of our cars. Chrysler South Africa has said they're still going to sell the Jeep, the Dodge and the Chrysler brands. They're in fact building new dealerships. They've put special offers on the table to lure consumers to the showroom floors, and they said that parts are still available. We'll honour all warranty and service agreements, so everything is still in place. And once they've emerged now in the US with this alliance with Fiat, it will also move into South Africa. Chrysler South Africa is due to be part of this new global company. So I don't think consumers should worry in this event. In General Motors South Africa has only entered the process now, as we said, on June the 1st, so things are still being thrashed out there. What will happen though, change, General Motors won't sell the Hummer anymore. The Hummer used to be produced in Port Elizabeth, the plant down there. the new company, the new owner who's going to take over Hummer, which is a Chinese company, will probably only retain the US manufacturing operations. So Hummer production has stopped in South Africa. But if you've bought a Hummer from General Motors, they say, we'll look after it, we'll service it, the warranty is intact, parts are available, don't worry about it. Saab is also being sold. That will also be affected. But again, if you own a Saab, you've bought it from General Motors South Africa, they'll look after it. And the same is also true for Opel, but this is a bit of a different situation. Opel is being sold to Austrian-Canadian parts manufacturer Magna and a Russian bank. But General Motors in the US is keeping an equity share in this company. So General Motors South Africa is very optimistic that they'll still be able to sell Opel in South Africa, that they'll look after the brand, that they'll service it under the warranties, etc. So Opel will remain a part of General Motors South Africa. That seems the likely scenario, which is important because Opel is a big portion of General Motors South African sales. I mean, the Opel Corsa utility is a big seller in South Africa. So we'll see that happen. The rest of it, General Motors South Africa is still all safe. Cadillac will still be sold. Chevrolet will still be sold. We'll probably see General Motors focus a lot on the Chev brand in South Africa. There's a new Cruise coming in, which will be their answer to the Toyota Corolla. And they probably hope to up the competition and increase sales through the introduction of this car. So the short answer to that is no. I don't think consumers should be that worried. The general feeling is that what happens in the US stays in the US, and the effect of it is not that big on the rest of the world.
Before we wrap up, what is happening at Ford?
Ford seems to be safe from the whole Chapter 11 filing process. They've done everything to try and remain a creditworthy company. It seems to be working. They also don't necessarily want government aid. The US government has proposed to give soft aid to the companies. I mean, General Motors have accepted it, Chrysler have accepted it, and Ford is trying to steer clear of that because you don't necessarily want the strings attached that come with that, because General Motors will now be 70% owned by the US government in this new process. And I mean, in the kingdom of capitalism, that is not something that you necessarily want. So Ford is trying to steer clear of it. You also don't want the reputational damage maybe that comes with a Chapter 11 bankruptcy filing. So hopefully Ford will be able to manage that. Hopefully they'll be able to survive a 9.5 million unit a year market down in the US.
Thank you very much. That is the Second Take show for today. Thank you for watching and join us again next week for more news analysis.